welcome to the Wednesday warm-up. I'm your host, Leah, and I'm so excited to be in your face today. To have my face in your face. It's so great. It's so great. It's a Wednesday. So, hey! My guest just walked into studio. Miss Nicole. Hello, darling.
Hello, baby now.
Are you good? Are you good?
I'm good. How are you?
You're coming here so refreshed. You're running here on a Wednesday. And it's Wednesday, so WCW, Women Crash Wednesday, is you ladies. You are my Women Crash Wednesday this morning, today.
I'll take it.
So thank you so much for joining me. So we've got Nicole, and then we've got Lulu Pie, Miss Lulu. Are you good, Miss Lulu?
I'm good. How are you ladies today?
I'm very well. And I'm grateful to have you in studio with me. It's the last Wednesday of Women's Month, right? Women's Month is coming to an end.
Went by so fast.
So fast. I feel like we didn't really even achieve much of what we needed to achieve this month for Women's Month, but it's okay. What we set out to do, but life gets crazy. Things do happen like that, but it's okay. Miss Lou, can I ask you just to move the mic closer to your mouth, please? Just watch the coffee there. But hello to the ladies and gentlemen watching this morning. Hello to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are super excited to be having this conversation. Also very nervous, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not even going to lie and be like, I'm so ready for this for this conversation, because we are the brave souls that are going to be doing some introspection this morning as well, to see, am I the drama? I don't think I'm the drama. Am I the villain? I don't think so. But that is what we're going to be doing this morning. So as much as I'm nervous, I'm also quite excited to get it started. But let us start off with some introductions. Let us know who you are. We'll start with you, Lulu. Can you tell us who is Lulu? What are your interests? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What are your red flags?
I don't think I want to mention that.
Be like, am I the drama?
I don't think I'm the drama. I don't have no drama, but my name is Lucretia. I just go by the name of Lulu. The way I would describe myself is just a simple person, man. And
simple as in like funny simple, or just like I'm simple?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Funny simple because I do weird things like dance in malls and just for fun. Not recording myself, just because I want to irritate my siblings.
Okay.
But yeah. That's basically.
Are you the eldest?
I am.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the eldest.
No, fortunately, it's nice to be the eldest.
I mean, it comes with its perks.
The pressure is getting worse. Is that what it is?
That is where the danger is.
Okay, cool. And you, Nicole, you were on the show before. You were on Gabfest, honey, and we had quite the conversation. We were talking about dating in our 30s. Here we are again, talking about the red flags. Mm-hmm. But who is Nicole?
Okay, so first of all, I want to apologize. I was just trying to flip and go live on my Instagram, and I couldn't get that right.
Okay, but after this, you can do it.
Yeah,
we are free here. We'll
figure it out, yeah. So I obviously also just rushed here from mom duties.
Yes.
Me. I am the furthest thing from simple. Right? I am
complicated.
I'm not complicated. I just think I'm layered. I've got so many layers. There's so many shades to me. And yeah, I mean, the reality is that I come with a lot. I am a lot.
Yes.
However, I also give a lot.
Okay.
And I offer a lot.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, I think that is me if I were to describe myself in a nutshell. Right?
Yes. And then just tell us a little more about your business. I see that there's a lot of development happening. I see on your Instagram, exciting times ahead.
I know.
Layered. You said you layered, girl. So let us hear those layers.
So a lot of progress. I mean, I'm always looking to evolve. I'm setting up my flagship hub for South Rand. So I've sort of segmented my business. Obviously, Coco and Co. Multinational, we're competing with the likes of your Unilevers and your Procters and Gamble's and your famous brands. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously the vision. That's what I want people, when people think Coco and Co.
Yes.
holdings, they must think along those lines. So yes, obviously I've got a long way to go, but I've set up, I'm in the process of setting up my first hub. And as soon as I've set up my sort of Coco & Co. and Made by Coco distribution center, which will obviously service the South Rand, I am then obviously going to, I've gone to Mozambique and I'm in the process of registering Made by Coco Mozambique.
Girl, we celebrate you this morning. Yes.
Botswana's next. I'm also in the near foreseeable future going to be venturing into, Latin America. So, the plan is obviously to create an environment and a space that will capacitate and support entrepreneurs who are in their starting sort of careers or ventures within the manufacturing industry, particularly CMT for now, as well as production of personal care products, cosmetics. I just want people to avoid the costs that I incurred, whether it be financial, whether it be, emotional, mental, physical, and to give them the resources and the tools they need for it not to take 9 years like it took me, but for it to take a year, and then obviously to give them access to my distribution channels, also to create and to set up my own retail chains that give them access to market. So big things popping. I am too Coco to be down. Flip. It's been a lot, but that's me, right?
No, I want to commend you on that. You're paying it forward. Last week we were also speaking about gender roles, and we were saying like our place in society as women, because it is Women's Month, although it's drawing to an end. But one of the things that we mentioned is that not to just hashtag women supporting women and hashtag sisterhood and hashtag sister goals and squad goals and stuff like that, but you are actually putting your money where your mouth is and you are paying it forward. So I want to commend you on that.
About it, right?
Yes.
I think too many people talk too much.
Definitely.
They talk too much. And I think the one thing that I've had to learn, is build thick skin. That means and I'm a topic of what? I don't know why. I don't understand it, but I mean, maybe my mother's always said to me, the minute they stop talking is when you must start getting right. I think we've all heard that saying.
Definitely.
But I think my work, my intentions, it speaks for itself. And I know for a fact that if I had any ill intentions, or if my motives, I had ulterior motives that didn't serve anyone that I come in contact with for a higher and a greater good, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't excel the way that I am.
Yes.
The path wouldn't be open for me. Yes, I face obstacles and challenges, but that's what I believe. I believe when we ask for something, right, the reason why we don't have it is because we're not ready.
Yes.
So naturally what God does is God then says, okay, my child, I am now going to I'm going to get you ready. And then it's also now that mindset that tells you, okay, when you're faced with challenges or obstacles, how do you choose to see it? Do you choose to see your glasses half full, half empty? And that is really where character building comes in, because some people give up and they say, but why me? Why am I going through this? As opposed to, what do I need to learn from this? Yes. Who do I need? What do I need in order to get me to where I'm meant to go? And when you look for the signs, they are there.
Yes.
They appear. You've just got to keep your eyes open. You've got to keep your mind and you've got to keep your heart open at all times, no matter how you are discouraged. So to say to you, people talk a lot, but I am about it. I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
That is such a good segue for the topic that we're going to have this morning, because you said it and you were talking about, there's lessons that we learn in this life. Life is going to life. It's going to happen, right? But there's lessons that you need to learn. And you have a choice. It's either you're going to learn the lessons and you're going to move forward with that at the back of your mind, and you're going to be like, okay, so this is what I've learned from this. I'm not going to make those same mistakes, or I'm going to treat this differently. And you said that the signs are always there, and the red flags, ladies, are signs. And that is what we're going to be speaking about this morning. I think that we can all, I don't want to speak for you ladies, but I have experienced relationships where the red flags were there. And even before the danger comes, do you know where that danger is? You know where that danger is, but you still go forward. That's the first thing that I want to ask this morning to you ladies. You know that I know I've seen the red flags. I'm like, this is the red flags, 1, 2, 3, and the other, but I still pursue. Why do you think we do this? Why do you think, with the knowledge that we have, that this is a red flag, our minds tell us, like, our spirits tell us, everything about us is like, this is going to be a problem for you. Why do we still pursue those relationships? And I'm not just talking about like sexual relationships. I'm talking about platonic relationships. I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about business relationships. Why do we pursue those relationships as women specifically? It's open to the floor.
Do you want to take it? Should I?
Go ahead.
Because I believe that everybody has the same heart as me. And I cannot get used to, I'm not without fault.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that nobody can take away from me is I always make right. If I mess up or whatever the case is, I always make right. But it's because I believe and I choose to see, okay, cool. You know, I choose to see or to look for the good, you know, and to look for the positives in a situation. I am an optimist, and I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm gonna say it, to a fault, to a fault, because not everybody thinks the way that I think. Not everybody is I'm solution based, right? So. I'm always, if something doesn't work, I'm going to look for another way. Whereas, you know, oftentimes we're dealing with people who are sort of, that's it, it's not working, or they're always looking for the reasons or looking at why it won't work and how it won't work, right? So I can definitely say without a shadow of a doubt, whether it be in my personal life with my family, in my relationships, platonic, as well as romantic, and in business, is that I choose to see the good and I choose to see the opportunities. I see the opportunities. I see how we can benefit each other. I see how we can work together. And as a result, I then, you know, I overlook.
Yeah. But you know that it's there. You see the red flags. Is that what you're saying? Or sometimes you don't even see it?
So, you know, being a coach, right? So, you know, and a psychotherapist, oftentimes, when I see what we call red flags, before I just write it off as a red flag, like, yo, no. I look and I do my best to understand, where did this come from? What made you this way? Can we work through it? Because I believe that we are all God-like. God exists in us all, right? So we are all capable of being high frequency beings. So I am always looking at, okay, what can we do to fix this? How can we overcome this? Is it going to impact us much? You know? And the reality is that along the line it does.
Definitely.
Almost always.
And for you, Lulu, why do you think that you overlook the red flags?
I think to a certain point, we always try, like you said, to see the best in people and like to believe that they have the best intentions for you, and then we end up overlooking these things. But also because you create an image or an expectation of what you think someone should be, and you hold on to the expectation of what this person should be, that you end up actually not really knowing that this is not the person that this is not that person. It's in your head. You know what I'm saying? So you just choose to overlook what you might call a red flag, just for the sake of saying, okay, you know what? I just want to be with this person, and just because maybe you... So for instance, if you have overlooked the red flags in the beginning and it pops its head up in the middle, at the end of the day, what you're going to be doing is you're going to keep on trying to fix it, or keep on just avoiding the red flags, overlooking the red flags, because at this point now, you realize that you've already put so much in that you are holding on to that, like, I'm going to lose so much if I pay attention to these red flags. So it's easier for us to just say, you know what, I think I might just be able to love with this red flag. But then at the end of the day, it gets to the point where you're like, you know what, I actually can't do this anymore. And by that time, it's even worse. And you just have to deal with the things that you need to deal with. You need to deal with the hurt. You need to deal with everything else that came with those red flags that you chose to avoid in the first place.
Yeah. So two things that you both mentioned, and I think that one thing is personality. So you spoke about the optimism, right? Because you're an optimistic person, is what you said, because you like to see yourself in others, because you love to see the good in people. So do you think, first question, do you think that is a personality flaw? Okay. Or do you just think that is human conditioning? Like, that's just how we were conditioned. As girls, we are, especially as girl children, we are raised a certain way by our parents compared to boy children. And we spoke about this last week. We were saying that, you know, in the household, especially like you find generally with mothers, there's a very glove-like mentality, the way they treat their boys and how they treat their girls, right? So girls are taught that you are nurturers, you are caretakers, you are da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And do you think that, that's why my question is, do you think that it's a personality flaw, or do you think that we are conditioned this way to think like that? Especially when you were speaking about seeing the good in others, always trying to come from a positive perspective, overlooking the red flags that is going to damage us, because we are the nurturers, we are the caretakers, we are the ones that stroke the man's ego, kind of a thing, you know. Do you think that is what is it, personality, or is it just the way we were conditioned?
Well, in my opinion, I think it is the way you are conditioned, because at the end of the day, red flags don't just come from nowhere. It comes from past trauma, it comes from past hurt, it comes from things that you might not even realize affected you, that created this red flag in you.
Yes.
So I think that if you don't deal with the past, and if you don't deal with those previous hurts, the previous traumas, it eventually becomes that red flag, if you know what I mean. So for me, it's definitely conditioning.
Yes.
In my opinion, yeah. Okay.
And for you, personality, or it's just the way we conditioned?
Okay, so I believe that there's an overlap, right? So of course, you know, as we grow up, we are conditioned, we are wired in a certain way, right? But as we get older, and also highly depending on whether we are self-aware humans, it's our responsibility to break generational, I don't like to use the word curses, but unhealthy patterns, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So first of all, not everybody does that. People are just so blissfully unaware, and they just go through life, focusing on themselves and, not looking or considering the next person. And that then, it becomes a personality flaw on both ends, because whether you've now changed the narrative and you've recreated your conditioning and you've planted new seeds and you've pulled out all of those weeds, we on that end, on that spectrum, the empaths, because we then look at oftentimes those who have not done the work, the shadow work, right? We call that shadow work. We often look at how we can work with them to come to the other side, right?
Yeah.
But we can't play God, and we can't alter people's fate.
Yep.
So I would say that there's definitely an overlap from conditioning, and then obviously also personality, because and on both ends of the spectrum, I definitely think it's both.
I get you. So you mentioned something very interesting there, and I want to move over to another thought. I was watching this interview by Professor Jordan B. Peterson and Ben Shapiro, and Jordan B. Peterson was saying that he loves the story of Beauty and the Beast, because a lot of the times you don't find the female hero myth, right, in folklore and stuff like that. But he says he particularly likes Beauty and the Beast because he says that Beauty, who is Belle, directly translated to beauty. He says that she's basically like the ultimate female hero. She's beautiful because it says that she's, that's her look. He mentions that she's beautiful. He says that she's also witty and intelligent, because that's another thing, because most of the times there's an imbalance in, that's the reason why you get like the ideal woman and then you get like, average woman. That's just, unfortunately, that's just how life is. We can try to be all inclusive and stuff like that, but if we really get into the gist of the matter, that's how it is. And he says, so she's beautiful, she's witty, she's intelligent, she's also brave and courageous, and she's adventurous, because she goes looking for her father and stuff like that. But another thing that's quite significant about beauty is that she rejects Gaston. And Gaston is like he comes across as the alpha male, or at least that's what he tries to portray. Okay, so but she rejects Gaston, which is not what most women do. He says, and she chooses the beast. And he says that oftentimes, and this is what I was thinking when I heard of this, because he says Gaston is the epitome of the dark triad. So he's talking about narcissism, he's talking about a psychopath, and he's talking about men who are like vain and puffed up, right? Those the dark triad. And he says that most women are attracted to Gastons and not the beast. And then I realized, and she says that the beast, beauty understands that I can civilize this beast, right? Because he says, in his opinion, that is the nature of woman, not of woman, of the female hero type, is to civilize man. And the male hero type is to civilize nature. And he says that as society, we have mixed that up because we feel like, but we mistake it. We think that we must fix a man. It's not about fixing a man. It's about civilizing the carnal, beastly nature of a man. And that is what we mess up. And it was so significant to me because I realized that we mistake Gastons for beasts when it's actually psychopaths. We see the strong masculine man and he's telling you what to do, but he's not a beast-like figure. He's a Gaston-like figure. He's a psychopath. He's a narcissist. And we are stroking that ego. So what do you think is the problem with us? Ladies, this is my question to you.
I want to tell you something.
Tell me, girl.
Baby
tell
girl.
me.
On my way here, right? You obviously shared that Monewa.
Yes.
I cried on my way here, right? I was triggered. I was triggered in a hectic way. And I'm gonna delve in a little bit, and I may cry. Right, but allow me. Right,
yes.
I'm gonna touch on my previous relationship, one of my previous relationships. Right.
Yes. Sorry. Before you go, can I just give context for the viewers?
Monewa.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was recently there was a video that went that
viral.
Viral. It circulated on Twitter and stuff like that. Also on Instagram. This she's a South African singer. Name is Monewa Moshesh.
Lovely lady.
Right? Absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful voice.
And you can also see, like in the video, you can see that this is a strong woman. She's an independent woman, and she's an intellect, right? So you watch a video, and she basically relays the story of her toxic relationship with a businessman by the name of Piwe Mapanga, right? And in the video, she's basically just saying like this 5 years of hell that she was with this guy who is actually a con artist, right? A swindler, for lack of a better term. And so what happens is she talks about how he took a BMW. He was supposed to fix a dent, but she hasn't seen it since. He talks about the Range Rover, the rent, how he bought a new car, but he bought it in her name, and now she's stuck with the debt of that new car. So she's paying off two cars that she does not have. And this man is just going on with his life.
And her stuff got auctioned off.
Stuff gets auctioned off. She had an apartment. She says that he's such a rich guy and he's a property developer, allegedly, according to her statement, right? A property developer, and allegedly he never took her to his house, not once in this whole time. And he was always at her place, but he's so rich and stuff like that. So she's paying rent. She's putting food on the table, allegedly,
and he's not contributed in
anything,
year.
Right? And so this is the story that takes place, and then she eventually gets evicted from from a place. She's got 2 cars that she needs to pay off. The one car is missing in action. She still has not seen it. The other car, she had to, I guess she did it. She doesn't say much about that, but I guess she had to sell it. But she still has the debt of paying
she's
that,
paying
right?
it both. Yeah, she's paying.
And so she says that she's just had enough because her life has basically come to an end. She's also, like we were saying, a singer. She was signed to a record label. He created a record label in her honor, allegedly. But now, she doesn't have royalties to that. She doesn't have access to her music because he didn't pay the producers. So her life is in shambles, according to what she's saying here. And that's just the context of what Nicole is about to share with you guys.
Yeah, so 2 things, right? And this is the irony about the Beauty and the Beast, because I'm dating somebody, right? And he's a beast. He's what a guy, right? But also in the same breath, beneath all of that is, a lot of unlearning.
Yes.
I'll get to that, right? And I always think, I always think of us when I think of the 2 of us, I think of the Beauty and the Beast. Interesting.
We are in line, girl. We are in line here.
So, to go back to my previous relationship, and again, I'm going to put out a disclaimer that I am not without fault, right? I am not a perfect person, but I can without a shadow of a doubt say that relationship brought out the worst in me. It brought out a side to me that I don't even recognize today. Now, without getting in like too much, I can talk about how he sabotaged me, right? So I grew up and I had a very dysfunctional upbringing. But, that is also why I was so drawn to coaching. I was drawn to psychotherapy so that I could understand myself better and so that I can do better. Because when you know better, you can do better, right? And I was very intentional about that. And this inner work takes, it's not an overnight job, right? Yeah. And having said that, our relationship, unfortunately, was toxic from the onset. It wasn't a healthy relationship, but we stuck it out, on, off, broken service, in, out. We shared children together. What I can say is I oftentimes overcompensated. I overcompensated in that relationship. And it was also because I was gaslit. And I wasn't just gaslit by him. I was gaslit by his father. And, it never goes away. You learn how to deal with it, right, over the years. But I still have a strong sense of call it resentment towards that, because you wouldn't do that to your daughter.
Yeah.
Why are you doing it to me? You wouldn't none of them would do it to their daughters, but they did it to me, And what is the role, if we want to talk about gender roles, because that is something that they were very big on, right? Okay, we want to talk about gender roles. Let's go there. I've always been working. There were probably short periods in between where I wasn't working, but I found ways to contribute. If I had to clean the house or, I found ways to contribute, whether it be cooking or whatever the case is, right? And I look back today and I think, I was constantly shamed if, I wasn't doing enough. I'm a mother. I was a young mother. I was trying to study. I was taking care of my daughter. There were times where, like I said, when I was at home and I wasn't working. But when I was working, which was, and bringing in the bulk of the money, oftentimes, there were obviously periods where, he did, and short intervals where he was the breadwinner. And if we want to talk about the breadwinner, we want to talk about maybe brought in a little bit more income than I did. But geez, did I work. I've been working, And I often, he's, in the entertainment industry, and I backed him, and I used to support him in everything he did at his events, and I was there. I was there for everything, right? And look, in all of this, there were times we broke up, and in those times that we broke up, I really began discovering who I was.
Yeah.
And I went back,
As we do sometimes.
We do, and a lot of the time I went back because of the children, or initially it was just my daughter. I had outside influences, particularly his side, namely the dad, and now and again from my mom's side. I grew up fatherless, and on their end it was like, yeah, you're unstable and you're bringing instability into the children. And so I thought, okay, cool, for me to be stable and for the children to be stable, I need to go back, I need to stay. And every time we would go, we would reconcile. I would always say, okay, so this didn't work the last time. This is what we had the last time. This is the problem. How are we going to fix it? Then he'd be like, no, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And things like date night, things like pillow talk, things like planning, things like all of those things, right? 2 weeks and then we're back.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing is now I look like a fool because I've now gone back and already the red flags are there. And it happened over and over again, but I chose to see the good, and I chose to see the good. And it sucked the life out of me, right? I was dying inside, and I wasn't taking care of myself. I was deteriorating. And I was also there was a point where I was so depressed and I was so ill. And my spirit was constantly being broken down. Like, yeah, you don't cook for me and you don't iron for me. And I'm thinking, boy, sure, I am doing as much as you are doing in this household. I mean, at the end of the day, and I'm also not well, and I'm running this business. I mean, my business, not once did this man take an interest in so much as wrapping a bath bomb. And how painful is that, right? Because this is something I'm creating for us and for our children. And he would watch me, like literally watch me, either work in the kitchen or work late nights. There were often times he would sabotage me to a point where I had to go to Cape Town. I had my first out of the province client, and I had product I needed to take for the launch, and I booked a flight. So obviously I took the best price flight, which is in Lanseria, and I had to arrive there my flight was at 6 or something. And the day before, he's like, no, I'm going to take you, whatever the case is. And dude rocks up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And wasted, right? And I end up having to drive myself. I had a concussion, actually, because I had to carry these heavy boxes, like heavy boxes into the car. I had a concussion. Driving, I got my granny or a relative rather, to drive me to the airport because I couldn't leave my car there. I missed my flight. I was so broke also, actually, because I needed to get the rest of the money in Cape Town. And I had to make a plan to pay the late fee or whatever. Dude phones me at 9 o'clock. He's like, where are you? I need to take you to the airport. And this is just like one of, many things. I mean, when we got married, and call it me airing my dirty laundry or whatever the case is, but this is what I went through, and it's real, and it's painful, right? We got married on our wedding, right? It was a budget wedding, right? And we spoke about it. So at this time we have 2 kids now, right? We speak about it, and I'm like, listen, my daughter's also asking me, what are you and daddy? And I sit with him and we have this conversation, and he's like, okay, cool, let's get married. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I start planning.
Sure.
I'm like, I'm a doer. I do.
Yeah.
Not this guy saying, are we really I'm like, what? I made the invitations already.
Sheesh.
Right? And then him and his father are like painting me out to the whole family to be like, and probably other relatives. I don't know. Right? But I do know the 2 of them because it became very apparent on the wedding day. Where, they're like, what, literally saying, I forced this marriage. So it was a budget wedding. They didn't contribute to anything, the father, right? To the wedding, right? And obviously on the last day, the aunt, lovely lady, she passed, absolutely love her. She did the catering. It was all last minute stuff. It was a stressful flippin' wedding, that I had no cooperation. I had no assistance. I had no support, It was like well, we're just gonna, you wanted this, so you
do everything.
you figure it out. And I can tell you something, their outfits cost more than the wedding. And he dictated, the father dictated what must happen at this wedding. He made me cry twice. Left my mother, because we had 2 ceremonies. Made me cry twice. Didn't make my best friend say her speech. When he said his speech, he said things like, yeah, now you can't leave. Pack up and leave.
Wow.
But the other day you had a situation where he was packing up and leaving, and I'm just like, I mean, my partner, my then husband and I didn't even share, we didn't even share a bed the night of our wedding.
Sure.
He drank until the next day.
Sure.
With his family and friends. And when I got home, I was sleeping on a yoga mat for 3 days.
Sure.
And that is just like, right? And my sense of self-worth and value was so diminished. It was, and it brought out such an ugly side to me that I was painted as crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody knew me as crazy, right? And it benefited them because then nobody would believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to start recording. I had to start documenting any incident that happened. I had to start emailing it. I had to start recording it. I had to start recording interactions. There was this one time where I had a client. This is the last scenario that I'll share. I had a client that I was formulating new product for, and he had, I think that was the day he resigned once again from one of his jobs. And he was on his way home, and he's like, okay, cool, I'm coming home soon, and I'll look after Luca. My daughter was in the States at the time. And I'm phoning this guy, and I'm like, dude, I need to prepare, I can't take my 3-year-old with me. And 5 o'clock came, 6 o'clock, 7. I phoned him 7 o'clock, and he's slurring. And I'm like, what is going, where are you, right? I'm coming now, because he said he was just going to go to Aspen. He was going to go and get something. I'm coming now. Dude arrives there, I think, at 8 o'clock. Sure. He couldn't even pull his car into the driveway. And I had to record it, right? Couldn't pull his car into the driveway. Wasted. And I had to leave my child with him. I had no other choice. And I went, it was next door, fortunately. Finished the job, got back. My son was still awake. He was sleeping, right? And I'm not saying this to, I'm slander, so to speak, but this is my literal, how I was sabotaged, how I was, the lack of support, and I overlooked it. And I ignored it. The day I had my launch of my store, my first little store in Mayfield Park, he got so wasted. My family and friends, I was so sad, so ashamed, right? But what did that do for me? It took me, we got divorced in 2018. There was a brief period we kind of reconciled. It was also manipulation, starting with the children, saying to the children, oh, I'm going to marry your mother. We were married.
Wow.
We were married.
Yeah.
So now you're creating this narrative with my daughter. And my daughter and I had a difficult relationship. Only now, she's 13, right? Only now are we, because maybe she's starting to see things and, for what they really are. I don't believe there's bad people. I believe people do bad things also, just to say. But, I'm going to marry your mother and we're going to be together. And then I gave it another chance. And then it was just, and then very brief, and that was the end of it. And I just said, you know what, we cannot. And these are my experiences that I overlooked, and I had to deal with. I had to heal, because it brought out such an aggressive side to me. And I couldn't quite, there's so many other things that happened, but I couldn't quite say it, because if I shared what he had put me through, even it's unforgivable. There's things that are literally unforgivable, right?
Yeah.
And if I had shared that, so all that people saw was me fighting with him, and you don't, and you don't take, look out for me, you don't take care of me. Our first anniversary he spent with his friends. I was downstairs crying in my bed. Sure. He was upstairs drinking and smoking with his friends.
Yeah.
So
What I want to say is, look, I really empathize with you, especially the fact that you were triggered by that video, and I want to apologize for that. But also, I think that it's also a good healing, because now when you know, oftentimes we think that we over certain things and we over those past traumas that you spoke about, but there's certain things that do trigger us, and it does come up again. But you know what was so interesting for me that I find out, and you were speaking about gaslighting, and gaslighting is a huge red flag, right? Because it's this manipulation. So it's manipulation by psychological means that you start looking like the insane person, and you that's the reason why many people say, and I and many people you say this, oh no, she's crazy, right? That's a psychopath. That one is psycho. But I'm not saying that, because you started off by saying that, you know, it goes without saying that you are not without fault, right? But it's interesting for me how we often do that as women. We often start off when we are about to tell our stories, our lived experiences, we overcompensate. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that, because it's true. We are not without fault.
Why I want to say that though, and why? Because, you know, if he ever decided, let's say he watches this, right? If he ever decided, listen, I want to say, he might not even be interested or whatever, but if he ever decided, what could he bring up that I left him every time he resigned, right? I walked away. But why did I walk away? Because the drinking.
Yes.
If you're going to resign, focus.
Yes.
We've got things to do. You see how hard I work. You see how hard I'm putting in the work. And to this day, now, years later, I have a social life. Oh my goodness. Is it a problem?
Yeah.
I have a very lovely social life. If I want to go out now, I'm gonna go out, you know. But I put in the work, the years of work where I put my head down. And everybody knows this. Yes. I put my head down. I work. So the reason why I say I'm not without fault is because he can easily come around and say, yeah, but she left me when I was at my lowest.
Yeah.
Boy, I was with you when I was at my lowest, and it was because of you that I got to my lowest.
Yes.
You know, you broke my spirit. It's like, this is how it is in a union, is you've got to constantly, you fuel each other. Sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes 40-60, sometimes 50-50, but you've got to constantly fuel each other. Where I found like, okay, cool, we're two different people. We're going on our own paths, right? But we can do it parallel to each other. But then what happens is Mr. Man veers this way. Now I feel like, oh my goodness, I got to go find you there. And I go find you, and then I need saving, and you're like, okay, see you on the other side.
Yeah.
All the damn time.
Yeah. No, I get you. But Lulu, for you, some of the red flags that really stood out for you, that looking back in retrospect now, you're like, that you were partially responsible for. Apart from the fact that you just looked for the good in people, and you always saw the good in people and stuff like that. But in your experiences looking back, and you were like, you see, these are things that keep popping up, because sometimes we repeat the cycles in our new relationships that we get into. We would like, but there it is again. Are we attracting this kind of person? You know what I'm saying? So for you, what are some of those experiences?
Well, for me, a huge one is isolation. So I was in a relationship where I wouldn't say I wasn't allowed to be friends, or have friends rather, but it would be a situation where I don't like this friend. When you're with this person, and then you act a certain type of way. And then when I go out with this person, then we have a fight, then we have a little breakup. And then I have to apologize because I went out with my friend and you didn't like that. So it became a situation where, even though I would say that I am partially responsible, because I allowed myself to fall into that trap of saying, okay, maybe this person isn't that good for me. Maybe I should listen. Maybe he has my best interests at heart, right? So maybe I should just stay away. And then I started isolating myself from people slowly. And at the end of the day, I actually found myself in a situation where I didn't have anybody. I had no one to cry to. I had no one to speak to. And that's what they want at the end of the day, right? They want to be able to control the narrative. They want to be able to control you. They want to get you in a place where you can't speak to anybody, so that person can tell you that, you know what, this is actually wrong. This is actually a problem. You need to get out of there. So you find yourself, or I found myself in a situation where I had nobody, and this person actually said to me, do you know what? Without me, you are actually screwed. Excuse my language. And this, he said to me, even your own mother doesn't want you. He went to the extent of trying to separate me from my own family, my own mother, my own sister. Like my family, he tried to paint me out in a bad picture. And I will say that I am not without fault, because I did do crazy things. But what I am saying is that for me is something that I allowed myself to get into by allowing myself to be isolated, even though it happened before. And then we broke up, and then we got back together. And I said, you know what, this time it's going to be different. This time I'm not going to let him say, like, don't have these friends and don't go out with this person. But guess what? It happened again. And by that time I was like, what am I now going to do now? Because like you said, you make up. You make up,
and now you look like a fool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and
it's sorry, you're going to continue now, but it's always the woman that looks like the fool. It's never the guy. The guys never look like fools for going back to this woman. It's always the ladies. Oh, look, she's again.
There she is. She's wearing a clown suit. You know,
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. So for me, that is one thing that I never ever want to find myself in. And I try as much as I can to speak to as much. Like I'm young, but I feel like I went through enough to be able to identify certain traits and certain red flags for me. Like that is one of them. So when I see one of my friends or my loved ones going through something like this, I will go and I'll say, bruh, like, think about this. Realize what is actually happening, because it's not healthy to be in a relationship like that, because that's where the gaslighting comes in as well. It
and
makes
take
you question your
from
own.
a fool, right? Like, don't you see me?
Exactly.
Am I not an example?
Exactly.
My friends always say I am. Sorry about that. My friends always say I am that living testimony. I am that testament to,
you are the poster child.
Both what not to do, but also what to do. I hear you completely.
Yeah, so that would be the main one for me. Yeah.
Is the isolation.
Yeah.
And that is almost like narcissism 101, but we don't like to see that. And the fact of the matter is, like, I don't like to throw these psychological words around just loosely, like narcissism and psychopathy and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is that this is what's happening. You know what? Sorry, I'm going back to what Professor Jordan B. Peterson says. He says that because women are they are attracted to these men that have the dark triad, right? Which is these three main things: narcissism, that vanity, that whole thing, that gaslighting thing that you're talking, manipulation, and then the psychopathy. And he was saying that because it's become so normal that we are constantly reproducing this generations of psychopathy, because we are not addressing it for what it is, and we need to call it out for what it is. It's narcissism. That isolation thing, it's narcissism 101. A narcissist in both ways will isolate you from your support structure, because then the gaslighting becomes an easier thing to do. They can say, look how psycho she is, and it's all. That's why I said, and it's mostly in most cases it's the men that say that about the woman. Like, can you see what I mean, bruh? Like, look how she's going on. Look how she's going on.
This is exactly what he used to do to me.
But that's the thing. That's what they do, because we are facilitating. We are holding
and enabling it.
We are
and
enabling
you know what's
that.
another thing that we often don't look at, or like when they start saying, when you meet someone and you speak to them, they start saying, you know what, my ex was crazy. My baby mama, she mad. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And you don't realize at that point that, someday he's going to turn around and say the same thing about you.
But hold on.
About you,
Meantime,
100%.
I'm sitting there and I'm praying for everyone that comes crosses paths with him. I'm like, please don't ruin her. Please don't ruin her.
It's like
She's not as strong as I am.
You've been so deeply hurt that you're like, I don't even wish it on my worst enemy.
I don't.
Like, even if there was a woman that's my worst enemy, I would say, girl,
absolutely
get
away.
out of there.
Right? But there's another thing that I want to bring up before we go into solutions when it comes to red flags. And it's this thing of again, it's based on gender roles, but it's this friction in the relationship, right? So boss ladies, you are a boss lady, you are independent, you are doing your things, you are making your money, and because times have changed, that is what we are doing. But Nicole, you spoke about now you trying to, because you are achieving, you are going for you are vying for your goals, and you are making your money, and you want to be independent. But you cannot take away from the fact that you are still a mother at home, or that you are still the nurturing kind. It's your female instincts that comes through strong. So how do you then balance the two so that you don't end up being the fool again in going forward into your new relationships now? Balancing the two, that saying, because a lot of what look, there's two sides to the coin here, right? And it's literally like a 50-50 kind of a split. What happens is, you are the strong woman, you are independent, you are intelligent, you are achieving your goals, and you are doing the things that need to be done. But you also don't want to lose your femininity, because that is also power. But now what the world tries to do is like, choose. Yeah. You can't be both. You need to choose. And the truth of the matter is, you don't need to choose. But how do you strike a balance? Because it's new ground for us. It's new territory. Our mothers and our mothers' mothers, I think we are the first generation, our generation, that this thing has become such a strong, the balance between your private life and your personal life, and then your career, right? How do you strike the balance so that you don't make the mistake of allowing a man to come into your life and allowing him to leave his red flags lying in your boot that you don't need? How do you do that?
Okay. So what I've done is, I have, again, shadow work, super important, because you've got to understand yourself, right? And I'd say the last 3 years, I was very intentional about doing my shadow work, learning, unlearning. I've dated wonderful guys. You know what the funny thing is? Every guy that I've dated outside of that, we've ended on good terms.
Wow.
There was maybe one guy, he was a little bit psycho. He was a narcissist too, but God bless him. But everyone else I have...
So you are not the drama.
I am not the drama, okay? I mean, I will fight for myself, and I will say my say, but I'm not the drama. So in any event, all the guys I've dated, we can still speak. If we bump into each other, we can still chat, we can still talk. Everything was amicable, it was peaceful. I mean, when the breakups happened, there was clarity, there was closure, ended really beautifully. And what I was very intentional about, let me talk about this person that I'm currently seeing. It's a challenge, because, okay, funny thing, we were talking about at the dating in your 30s thing. Yeah. I was talking about dating. For some reason, I was attracting younger guys. And I'd known this guy for a couple of years, been sussing him out. I know he was sussing me out too. And, up until recently, we were like, are we doing... And he's older than me, significantly older than me. But, he comes from a place where he's so used to being on his own. He's been alone for many years. And not thinking or having to consider, somebody else, so that also it's a lot to take in and to take on, right? On my end also, I have this habit where I can sort of isolate myself, or I can go mute, or I can go ghost, even with somebody that I'm dating. And I have to every day wake up and say, today, that's what you're not going to do, because you want a different outcome, you want a different result. When we talk about like red flags, right, and ignoring them, or, looking out for them, ultimately, you need to know first of all, you need to know what you don't want. Right, and that's how we learn. Throughout life, when we date, or when we form relationships, friendships, we start to see what it is that we don't want, and who we don't want to be, and how we don't want to do things, right? And by virtue of understanding and knowing that, you then know, okay, cool, how do I want to make this work, right? And how am I going to, you can't make a red flag a green flag. But there really are things, I believe wholeheartedly, that a lot of the time something may appear to be a red flag. But if a relationship, if you're dealing with two adults who want to, who are open to communicating and saying, look, this is how I'm used to doing things. This is how I am as a person. And I'm never going to change. If somebody says that to me and I still choose to say, okay, cool, well, then you're never going to change. I'm going to work around it.
Yeah.
I got to deal with it, right? But those conversations are so important because it's a matter of then maybe on the other end of the spectrum saying, this is how I am. But if it makes you feel some type of way, I am willing to compromise. So you've also got to understand what your deal breakers. What are your deal breakers? You've got to know yourself better than anyone else knows you. Because if there is something that is a deal breaker for you, you've got to communicate that up front while it's still early stages and say, listen, I don't know how I feel about this. How can we work around it? But also in the same breath, if you're dealing with somebody who's like, that's just how I am, deal with it. Or like, let's just call it. That's also, you've got to, see it at face value. You've got to see it at face value. So it ultimately boils down to, I want a different result. I want a different outcome. Knowing yourself, healing. You will find the same content in a different package if you don't go out and really work on yourself and be able to identify. I've seen you, I know this, right? But again, I can't emphasize enough. There are certain attributes that could be mistaken for narcissism, but is really even on the spectrum of autism. Asperger's. I've got Asperger's syndrome. So there are certain things that could easily make me look as though I have narcissistic attributes, particularly me shutting down and quickly moving. Like, okay, I can't, unfortunately, also because I'm a businesswoman, I'm a mother, I can't sit with things oftentimes. I can't sit, I have to keep moving. And then it makes it look like I am maybe self-absorbed or I don't care much or I'm inconsiderate. But I mean, are you paying my bills? Balance again, as a mother, me at home, it's me and it's my children. And I don't have support. Right? And I have got to constantly be at my best. I've got to constantly show up. So me being in a healthy relationship and a peaceful relationship and one that adds value to me and one that I can pour into because I'm such a giver. And it's an all or nothing for me. I can't be I don't know how to be in between. I don't know, and I'm not the kind of woman who's going to say, okay, cool, I love you and I want to be with you, but I'm not getting this and this and this out of you or from you, so I'm gonna go get it there. Because that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's doing that. They're like, okay, fine, okay, you're not gonna give me that. I'm gonna get it there. I'm not about that life. I'm like, okay, listen, we're in this. Let us work on it. Let us figure this thing out. Let us see how we can work around it, how we can move around our personality traits and our ways that we are so set in, and are we willing to unlearn, adapt, change?
And for you, Lulu, what do you think some solutions going forward in your own experience, but also like generally speaking?
I definitely agree with what Nicole says. So for me, the important thing is when you identify a red flag is communication. Communication can make or break a relationship. So if you communicate your concerns to your partner or potential partner or whatever the case may be, and they are, like you said, and they are not willing to work on it, then you know already where you stand. And then you need to ask yourself the question, am I going to continue with this person with the red flags that they are holding on so tightly to, or am I going to leave? It's as simple as that, because the decision is yours ultimately. So like you said, sometimes it's not necessarily a red flag. But if you start to communicate to your partner about it and then find solutions and see how you guys can make this better, and then eventually that's how you can...
make it
I get you.
Make it work. Yeah.
in closing, because I cannot believe that we are at the end. But in closing, I was listening to this interview, and Ben Shapiro says something, and he alludes to something in the Bible. He speaks about Genesis, and he speaks about the first story of humanity. And he goes to Adam and Eve, and he says, you know what was so interesting in understanding that the context of that? He says that Adam names Eve. God doesn't name Eve, and Eve doesn't name herself. Adam names Eve. But he first calls her Isha. And Isha means a derivative of himself, right? Because obviously she comes from his rib. The rib was taken out and then God formed her and stuff like that. So he sees her as a derivative of himself, right? So almost he objectifies her.
Yeah.
Yes. He almost objectifies her, like, because I named, God gave me the right to name the animals, and I'm also naming you. So you are derivative of me because you are more in my form compared to the other animals. So he calls her Isha. But then he mentions something called Isakonekdos in the Hebrew. And what it means is God calls her Isakonekdos, right? Which is woman. And not woman, but like your helpmate. But the word translated means helper against you. So your adversary. So Eve is actually his helper adversary, right? And so Jordan Peterson then says that's interesting, because he says that in neurophysiology there's something called opponent processing, and he says that in order to make your hand move across the room like this smoothly, you can do this, but he says if you do this, the chances of it moving more smoothly, if you've got opposition, right? If you've got resistance. It makes it better to move it more. It makes the progress smoothly. And he says that is actually, he says oftentimes the reason why relationships fail and because they don't make sense is because we are trying to find people who are so compatible with us that there's no resistance. There's nothing like that's gonna say, no, Nicole, this is wrong, no, Lulu, this is wrong. We want agreeableness all over the place. We want another partner that's agreeable to us. I see that you've got very strong masculine temperaments, which means that you are not always agreeable. I can pick that up in you. And now you have a partner that's maybe agreeable. He doesn't like conflict, or he doesn't, and it's fine to be like that. You don't need to find somebody who is your direct, to be so compatible with the person, but also so different with the person.
I have to say this though.
Say it, girl.
I have to say this. Myself and this person we're a very unlikely couple.
Yeah.
Unlikely. Nobody would expect it. You never expected it. Yeah. But in the same breath, I am an alpha female, right? He's an alpha male. But for the first time in my life, right, I have so much trust and I feel so safe, and that I submit.
Wow.
Right? And therefore, as you speak about this resistance, right?
Yes.
I believe we're two very different people. Very, very different people. And finally, there's this softness about me that's coming up.
Sure.
That's coming out. Whether it lasts, whether it works or not, what it's brought in me or what he's taught me is that I can be, that I do have it in me to be soft, to be gentle. Because all I've ever had to do in my life is fight. Fight for my place in the world. Fight for respect. And now I am, I can be soft.
Wow.
While he's this.
Yeah. But he still maintains his masculinity. And he still maintains his alpha masculinity, but it doesn't mean that he's threatened by your alpha femininity.
Yeah, he's definitely not. And he's so secure to a point that I'm like, maybe do you not care? Or do you really trust me?
But you've got that adversary. You guys are both helpers and adversaries of each other. And then he says something else. He says that, Eve only got the name, which is Chava in Hebrew, but she only got the name Eve after she bore children. And Eve means mother of all living things. And so her name changed. Sure. So now he sees her, because now she brings value to the relationship, right? And that's how she brought value to the relationship, because he was the hunter, he was the man, he was doing the things. But now he's like, hey, this woman is not just a helper. She is not just Isha. She's now Chava.
She's the bearer of life.
She's the mother of all living, which means that she's now got a purpose. And I think that if we in ourselves can find that purpose, we know our purpose as women, we become so much more stronger, even in a relationship, not to the point where we try to dominate, because now you've got these toxic men coming out and saying, woman, you are not supposed to dominate. And it's like, no, but listen, we're not trying to dominate in the relationship, but there is definitely value for us. So I want to end off with this, because it's like you're stealing the words out of my mouth here with your relationship. But you said, I stumbled upon this post, right, earlier this, like a couple of weeks ago, from on Instagram, and it's called Embrace Your, the username is Embrace Your Singleness. And exactly what Nicole just said now, this lady says, when you're with the right man, being a woman is easy. Your feminine energy just flows naturally. Have you ever been with a man and you could just be a woman? You could be soft, no hard defenses, no masculine energy needed, because he has it.
Sure.
You can just be a woman. And that for me was like, yes, that's all we asking for. Right? That's all we asking for. And going forward, I think, ladies, I just want to firstly say thank you so much for this conversation. There was so much insights that I gained from the both of you. Thank you for making yourself vulnerable also on the show. It's not always the easiest thing to do, because then you do get things like people like, oh, you see, sensitive.
Party.
She's so sensitive and stuff like that. But you allowed yourself to be vulnerable, and it's for a greater cause. It's because as females, as women, you know, we see the red flags, and oftentimes, and the reason why it's also such a dear topic to my heart is because GBV is rife. Femicide is rife. And I think that it stems, that's where it starts. It starts with the red flags that we keep ignoring. And that's the reason why, not just physical abuse, but we are emotionally abused. We are mentally abused, to the point where we lose our femininity, we lose our dignity, we lose our self-esteem. We look at ourselves and we blame ourselves. Am I the drama? And now you say to yourself, no, I'm not the drama. It's just that I've been making the wrong decisions. Moving forward, I make better decisions. But any closing remarks as we end off? Any advice? Look, Nicole, that's your camera, so if you want to speak directly into Lulu, that's your camera. If you want to speak directly into the camera, please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Lee, for having me. It's been a pleasure, and definitely a lot of insights that I as well learned from you, Nicole. Like, wow, what a story, eh? And I think I've been through life like, wow. But all of our journeys are different.
Yes.
So what I would want to say is what I've been saying. Don't ignore the red flags. If you do come across the red flag, communicate. Yeah. It's the only way you're going to resolve anything. If you choose to stay after this person says, like Nicole said, you know what, this is me, either I'm not going to change, then you need to run, baby girl or baby boy, just run. But communicate your feelings. Don't be afraid to say what you want. Don't be afraid to say how you feel. And don't be afraid to be yourself, and because you are trying to impress this red flagger. Just be yourself, be happy, be safe, and just don't fall for it, man.
Yes.
You know better. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
Nicole.
Know thyself.
Yes.
It's so important for you to know yourself and understand yourself, because when you know yourself and you understand yourself, you know what it is that you want and what it is that you don't want. And by virtue of knowing what you want and what you don't want, you can clearly communicate and express your needs, your desires, your deal breakers. And then obviously it is up to you to then make the decision as to, depending on the outcome of your conversations, of the dialogues that you're having with your significant other. And again, is there compromise? Are we meeting each other halfway? Or is it that's just how I am? Are you just going to put up with it? And then you've got to take responsibility and take accountability for that. But also, I cannot emphasize enough that we are living in a world where we can no longer afford to go through life just blissfully unaware of ourselves.
Yes.
You have got to do the shadow work. We are in a very, very sort of important time. The earth, Mother Nature, the divine we are at a time where we've got to make shifts. We've got to elevate ourselves. We've got to sort of change our minds. And the only way that you can change your mind is by doing the shadow work and sitting with yourself and understanding yourself. Because if you don't understand yourself, you're just going to accept and take anything that comes your way. And then you're going to stay in victim state. So are you a victim or are you a victor?
Thank you so much. Well, I just have to give shout outs also to the people in the comment section. Ladies, it is my birthday today. So a lot of people. Yay! Thank you. So we've got Veronique Lai saying, good morning, ladies. Also, happy birthday, Lee. Thank you so much, Annalise. Happy birthday, Lee. My mom, happy birthday, my beautiful Lee. Love you lots. Love you too, mommy. And then who I needed, I'm not too sure who that person is, but happy yourself birthdays, Lee. Thank you. And then Ethan, well, the username is Ethan Kuberg, but I see that it's from Dulcie Kuberg. And this person is saying, super proud of all the ladies being interviewed today. And may God bless you more and more. Love you, Stacks. Love, Dulcie Kuberg. Thank you so much, Dulcie. A shout out to you. Melissa Constance, my cousin, saying, happy birthday, beautiful Lux. That's Melissa? What they call me. Yes.
Hello, Melissa. She went to Sojourn, right?
Yes. And then she continues to say, Nicole, you are a strong woman. We are super proud of you. She says, may God continue to bless you and guide you. So yeah, you guys clearly know each other. We can see it in the comments there. And then Jesse Hendricks, who is my co-host, but he gave us the opportunity today. Thank you to Jess for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation without you. And he says that, happy birthday, Lee. They grow up so fast. Kanti is younger than me. And he says, just the other day, I was changing your nappies. Wow.
Not you.
And then Bing's Fortune says, love you, Lulu. So thank you so much. We want to say shout out to everybody. Thank you so much. Continue to support these ladies. You can do so by following them on Instagram. You can follow their journeys. You can follow their whatever they're doing. Please do go out and support them. Nicole is a business owner, so at Doses of Coco. But you also have an Instagram page for your business, and it's made by Coco, right?
Yeah, so it's ITS Made by Coco, and then my manufacturing company is Coco and Co SA.
Okay.
But
we will put all those details. I'll put it in the description after the show. So please do go out and show support. I'm telling you, she gave us I need to restock because, girl.
No, I'm gonna gift you.
Let me just say, honestly speaking, this is now not because you are on the show, but honestly speaking, like we even spoke about it, the Anka as well that was on the show the last time that gave you the products. We were like, firstly, this thing lasts for very long. The products, it lasts for very long, and it's daily use. It's not like I'm using it once. And the thing is, because of the consistency of the product, right? You can use a little bit it goes along. I'm not lying to you. I'm serious now. I'm very serious, right? So you gave us the cleanser, you gave us the moisturizer, you gave us the prime toner.
You can use whether you're wearing makeup or not.
Yes.
To help set your makeup, or if you just need to refresh, and it's mattifying. It assists in minimizing the appearance of your pores.
You also gave us the
freshener,
yes,
and my sanitizing
girl.
cleanser.
We're gonna go to
bath bombs and scrubs.
We're gonna go to my car right now. You're gonna see it is there. It is there. And when I get into, like you gave Anka as well, when I get into people's cars, the first thing I look at, because the smell is so, like, it's strong. You get that smell when you get into a car. When you get into the car, I'm like, I look there to that thing. I'm like, that is Coco's fragrances right there. I can smell it. So I want to say thank you. I definitely am going to restock, apart from the gifting, but I'm definitely going to restock because I'm telling you, been doing the things that need to be done to the skin.
Science.
So if you need skincare, she is your girl.
30 fine and you.
Girl. But also, we thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, love you lots. Bye.